Hi, everyone. I wanted to tell this story very quickly because I hope that it would help someone that may be experiencing the same thing. I was adopted as a child, and I always knew that I was adopted since I was little. And when I actually was in my teens, I was interested, but I did not pursue finding my biological parents. Um, and went through my life, got married, had children, and it was my husband who brought it to my attention in my 30s, to find my biological parents because I've always dealt with some identity issues, and racial identity, and just self identity. Um, and so when I was 34 years old, I decided to request I had just, within the last year of that, I found out that New Jersey had released their New Jersey, and I waited for that. That took about, saw on my original birth certificate the name of my biological mother, and I quickly, turned to the computer to find her. It took me less than probably 20 minutes to find, her name, to find out that she had married and that she had changed her last name, and I had her phone number and address, and that was pretty simple. Um, and so I was really nervous at that time to reach out to her. I really didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if she was going to, not give me any information. There was no information on my birth certificate regarding my biological father. There was nothing up there about him. And the adoption agency in New Jersey that she had gone through was the Catholic Diocese of Newark, and they kind of gave my parents a quick summary, I guess, of what the story that they had received from my biological mother, which was um, that she didn't want a baby at the time, that she wasn't married, that she possibly had had an affair with someone that she worked with, and that was it. And so I really didn't know if that was true. I really didn't understand why there was no information about my biological father anywhere, and I decided to find out. To find out what I would, to just risk it. I didn't have anything to lose at that point. I already had my family, I had my children, I had my husband, and I didn't want, and I wanted to get closure. I've always felt very like I just appeared. It was almost like I didn't have any connection to self. I didn't have any, and I think that kind of created issues with like accountability and actions, accountability and words. It really affected me, I guess, in my personality and how I relate to people and how I build relationships and keep relationships. And so I was just ready. I was really ready to find out, and at this point, I wish I had done it sooner, but I know that I am a firm believer in God, and everything happens for a reason, and 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 divine timing. And I feel like the me finding her at that time in my life was intended. And so when I found her, I spoke to her, and she kind of just asked me, what I look like. And I could tell that some of her initial feelings was that I wasn't going to look like her, because, my father had more dominant genes, and him being biracial, and her, um, I just felt like I could tell from even our first conversation that it had to do with the fact that she just didn't want to raise a child, you know, um, that possibly would look like him, because of course she had issues with him, but she still wouldn't tell me his name. And I've always been um, interested in him, um, because there was just no information. I kind of came up with stories about her, but with him, I just always felt like there was, a connection. And I think most girls are more like their father biologically. I know my daughter is so much like her father. And so, anyways, I spoke to her, and everything went really well initially, but she still wouldn't give me his name. And so she said, well, I'm going to contact him, and I'm going to make sure that I can give you his name. And it infuriated me because I said, what do you mean his permission? I didn't have your permission to contact you, and I'm an adult and I need his name. Anyway, weeks went by, and I finally decided, or she finally decided after me, calling her incessantly and pursuing it. She agreed to give me his name, but she said she didn't want any contact with him. And I said, okay, that's fine. And so she gave me his name, and within another 20 minutes, I had found him. I found his sister. I found phone numbers. I think most people are pretty tech savvy at this point, and they're able to Google search and find people. And I had their Facebook accounts. I had, I had everything I needed. So I reached out because he didn't have any working phone numbers. I did reach out to his sister and got information from her, and that's how I was able to contact him. And, I feel like my entire story my entire life led up to me meeting him, because every issue, every experience, every tendency, personality trait, everything I couldn't explain was him. And I was in shock at first but it made me reflect on myself and reflect on my decisions. It made me reflect on who I was and why I was that way. And maybe at first I didn't see it clearly, but months passed by, and just talking to him, not every day, but talking to him and getting a good idea of his life and his experiences and his decisions and who he was, I feel like that made me real. I mean, that was the moment that made my life real. I always felt almost fake, like I just kind of appeared out of nowhere and I was me. And knowing him and getting to know him, and not necessarily having, an in-depth relationship, but just knowing him and knowing who that person is that I came from, whose genetics I share, whose family line, racial backgrounds, his parents, but mostly him. That has created me. So I feel like I and a lot of my life I don't even remember. I mean, my childhood, most of my childhood, some of my young adult I remember, but not very much. When I'm 35 years old, that's when I finally feel real, and I have memories, and I have accountability, and I have responsibility. So I'm doing this video because I know that there are other people that feel this way. I know that there are other people who have been adopted who don't feel that they have that connection. And if someone doesn't feel this way about their adoption, then more power to them. But this experience, and I don't even talk to him anymore because because I got an idea of who he was and how I became who I am. Now, all of a sudden, I'm like, what have I been doing the last 35 years or 36 years? I haven't really accomplished that much other than getting married and having children and working. And it has changed. It's changed everything. It's changed everything for me. And I'm not saying everything is where my goal is. I'm not saying that everything is exactly where I want it to be, but I'm saying that my life is better because I found them and I got to know him. And I'm complete. And now that I'm complete, now that I can see my direct connection with life, I can live my life and I can make mistakes. And I make mistakes. But I know that my husband and I are willing to do whatever is necessary to achieve our goals together. And our connection, my relationship with him, has completely changed. It's so much better. My relationship with my husband, my relationship, even with my children, my accountability for my children on who they become. And I know a lot of people, I know people that have not been adopted may not understand the feeling of just kind of appearing out of nowhere. But having that foundation is necessary. And if you have young children, if you have children that you've adopted, please help them. Please guide them. Give them, even if it's not a great story, it's better than no story at all. Even if it's not a good story, excuse me, a story is better than no story at all. So I hope this message finds everyone well that may be looking up adoption, that may be adopting, that may be helping their children, that may be adopted themselves. And I encourage you to find your foundation.